can't even get one. In this video, we're going to start tearing apart the brand new RTR 1982 Toyota pickup from RC4WD Drive, making it flex better, doing a couple adjustments to make it more scale to the actual Toyota pickup, and maybe a couple other things, we'll see. But yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, so we have the brand new RTR. If you didn't watch my last video, I kind of went over some of the things that were wrong on this truck, just compared to a real truck, a real Toyota pickup, but we're going to be fixing that today and doing some suspension tweaks to make it flex a little more, and a couple little other things. But first off, we're going to do an A&M Garage Shackle reversal kit. We'll get that done and over with. We got this is like what they have in the Marlin, the high clearance skid plate, because this one for the transfer case is very low. So this will raise that up. Very, very good performance upgrade, just that simple. Taller shock hoops. We got to figure out how we're going to put these in. I might have to do some shaving in the engine bay since it does have that scale motor. So we got to figure that out. These are some just cheap eBay ones. They do the same trick. And if I have to use the Galande ones that I have shaved on my other truck, I'll just swap these out for it because that one doesn't have an engine bay anyways. Got some little details like this. Put the actual cross member on there. This was 3D printed. There's a file online for that. I can't even remember what it was or where I got it, but yeah, so that is just not proper. If you run a bumper, you'll need that depending on the bumper. There's different heights and stuff, but we're going to put the cross member on there. That's supposed to be, you know, scaled to the real truck. And, oops, I changed the mood. Yeah, other than that, we're going to just do some things to tweak the suspension. I might put longer shocks on here. And I think I decided what we're going to do with the overall build. Rather than going about it with another scale like beater stock truck like I have my other Trailfinder, I think I'm going to make this one into like a woods truck, like a hunting truck. So like a lifted version of that, but that way I have a little more diversity through my collection, because most of them are just always beater stock Toyota trucks, which I love, but I figure maybe we'll try something a little bit different, do the lifted version of it, and see how I like it. I could always lower it back down, but as this comes with a leaf under, we're just going to flip the axle, so that'll give us a good lift right off the bat, and we'll see if we have to do it any further than that, but I'm not going to do a crazy lift, just enough to look like maybe a 3-inch lift or whatever. But yeah, let's tear right into it. So first, we'll be installing this A&M Garage Shackle reversal kit, and I'm going to show you actually the easy way to do it, and quicker way probably, because you don't have to drop the transmission and stuff. You just need a really special rare tool. Yeah, no, all you gotta do is snip a Allen head or an Allen key, and that's all you need. I actually have a longer video on how to do this on my YouTube channel if you scroll down to the thumbnail, but I'm gonna do a quicker video of it today just to make the video shorter. But yeah, that's all you need. Cut it with a set of side cutters and you're good to go. Well, while we're doing the A&M Garage Shackle reversal kit, we're gonna put longer shocks and the axle flip, because we're gonna have the leaf springs detached anyway, so we're gonna do everything kind of at once and just make it easier. But yeah, these shocks are I think 60 millimeter out of the box, and these I believe are 70. They're just ones I had laying around. Might go with a different set, I don't know. I got a bunch of stuff, but still waiting for the ones I ordered for this truck to come in the mail. But yeah, let's dig right into it. And the main reason for the Shackle reversal kit is just to make this proper, because a real Toyota, the hanger is in the front and the shackle is in the rear, so backwards from this thing is supposed to be back here. So it just makes it more scale, and probably a little bit easier to crawl, because you're not, when you bounce into something, it's not bashing this backwards. It's not like, well, this is all brand new and stiff, but whatever, all sorts of random stuff. But me, the reason I do it is just to make it more proper to the real truck. And again, if you want to see the simpler video of doing a shackle reversal kit, just watch that other video, because we don't do axle flip or any of this other stuff. This is kind of an all modification video. The other one's just straightforward with doing this swap. But yeah, we'll start by taking this, the bumper holder thing, whatever you want to call it, take that off out of our way. And then we'll take the shackle off the front. And this shackle you end up putting on the rear, so you just reuse the factory parts. And I like to just slip the bolt back through there just to not lose it. Throw the nut on the other end. Take this one off, and then we'll just slip that back in there for safe keepings for now. I'll do the other side off camera. I'm gonna unbolt the top of the shock next. There's not really a correct order to do this with most of it because it's just kind of all attached, so whatever is easiest. Make sure you don't lose your little spacer there on the back of the shock. We'll take that off and I like to just keep all the hardware together that goes to each other. I'm gonna pop the bolt off the servo horn, and I don't know for sure if we have to mess with this much. We will have to align it probably a little bit, just because it's going to be lifting and pulling the two bars apart, which will make it turn one way. So that's actually, we might have to realign the servo horn or something after. We'll figure that out, but I don't know if we have to flip anything around. The ready to run truck actually came with this extra steering bar, track bar, whatever, but I think it's for if you run it back here. So we'll figure it out as we go. I think it'll work just fine the way it's already set up. I already spun the nylon nut off the back, so this will come off pretty easy. Like the top, don't lose your spacer that's back there. And then actually, once you get the one side off, you can just swing that out of the way so you can directly get to this bottom shock mount. Man, just taking these shocks off, the spring that's inside of them is super stiff. So if you just wanted to pop the top screw off of these, if you don't have longer shocks or anything, you're just trying to get more flex out of your stock rig, all you gotta do is twist this top off and spin it, and it'll spin all the way off, and then pull the spring out, put it back on, and it'll soften the front suspension and the rear if you do it to the rear quite a bit. So just a tip if you're just trying to get a little more flex out of your stock Trailfinder without doing all the nonsense I'm doing. Now let's do the axle flip. So the new Trailfinder comes with this little block for doing it this way with a little curve in it. So I'm pretty sure you just get rid of that and put it on the top like the old Trailfinder. It should just mount right to the top of the axle without the block. We'll figure it out as we go. Trying to show you guys what I'm looking at up here. But yeah, see this little block here, and then there's a curved piece that just wraps around the bottom of the axle. So shouldn't need that anymore. I'm gonna pull these apart. There we go. And then I'll pull the other side off camera, and then I think we'll show you how it mounts on the top. Might be able to just twist this far enough. Oh, well, I guess we got to put that drive shaft extension piece on anyways that it comes with. You should just be able to mount it like that. We're going to put that helper spring in too, probably. We'll see how soft that is, but yeah. So these little extended versions of the one that comes with the RTR, they come with the truck in the box, so gives you these to throw in there. That way your axle doesn't keep popping off once you lift it, because it pulls the drive shaft further apart. So pop those in quick and then throw the axle back on. Still deciding if I want to run one spring for now till it breaks in, or both springs. And it's kind of experimental. Sometimes I'll just run the one main spring and then a spring in the shock, or no spring in the shock and then two springs. So it all depends on the stiffness between the parts and yada yada yada. It's a lot of just playing around with things to figure out how it works, or how soft you can get it, happy medium. Yeah, that's what these trucks are about, is figuring out what you want to do with it and how you want it to drive and all that. It also comes with these bolts. They're shorter, so if you do the axle flip, you have the shorter bolts to put in up here. At least I think that's what they're for. Makes sense. So then you're not running these super long bolts all the way through for no reason. We actually might use these though, because I might do the O-ring mod while we're at it. So how about we do that? We'll throw the O-ring mod in there. might as well while we have it all apart. I'm going to show you the O-ring mod just on one screw. You just copy it with all the other ones, just because it's kind of hard to film everything. But take a washer, a little small washer, and then your O-ring, throw that guy on top right there. And then what you'll do is throw this through here, put another O-ring on the bottom like that, and then depending on if you want another spring or whatever, you'd put the spring on before that second O-ring, and then you just thread it into the axle like that and do it on all four corners. It just gives you a little tiny bit more flex and give with the suspension. It was popular back in the day. I don't know if people still do it, but I was gonna do it because we have it all apart anyways, and I have just enough washers to do the front and rear, so hopefully I don't lose one. I'm actually ending up going with the smaller screws that I showed earlier, because the longer one I still have in the rear, but it just sticks out way too far, and I don't want the threads to get ground up and stuff, bashing off rocks, and then every time you want to take the screws out, it's stripped or something, or a pain in the butt. So yeah, use the shorter screws if you're doing this, because they're plenty long to do the O-ring mod with and have enough thread in there to stay. And also use a little bit of Loctite on the end of the thread. That way it stays in there pretty good, and your end result will look like that. So, and you can always tighten and loosen it a little bit, especially once that Loctite starts to harden. Will give you more resistance, but then you can mess with it even a little more. But you don't want to over tighten them where the O-ring starts to bulge out like that. I got a little bit of Loctite on that, so it's popping out, but yeah. Okay, so I think the reason why they give you this extra track bar, whatever you want to call it, is because once you do the axle flip, this is now under the leaf springs instead of over top of it. And we're just going to leave it this way because that's how it is on a real Toyota. So we're not going to do the swap this thing or whatever. No. Yeah. We'll just bolt it back up and then throw shocks on. At least mount them down here. You're going to see how much travel we get with the body on and stuff with these stock shock hoops, and then see if we'll kind of mess with anything from there. And throw your shock on before you throw the track bar on. Put a little bit of Loctite on that as well. These tend to like to fall out. I'm hoping that'll make the alignment straight. Kind of makes sense. You pull it away and this distance changes, so I don't know. We'll see. We can mess with it later. So back to the Shackle reversal kit. What I like to do is install the front hanger first, and then that way you can just unbolt this here, connect it there, and then that way the axle's not flopping around everywhere. I kind of just threw the bolts in down here too to stabilize it, but it just keeps it all kind of in place while you're doing it. The big bolt that they give you goes right here. And then this goes here. And then the big nut that comes with it goes on the back side. It's easier to do that nut first, and then you can slide that bar on afterwards and then do the front. Pop this cross member in there. I usually just tighten these up all the way afterwards. But yeah, get that in. I'm going to just find a different screw to put in here. I can't remember if one of these are for it or not, like that shorter one. I know one of these are for the rear, the hanger, the rear shackle. But yeah, I'll just find a longer one because the original ones are just, I don't know, they'll thread into there, I guess, but I want it a little bit more affirming. Now to pop this bolt off the hanger, and then do the same on the other side. And once you have them both loose, you can just slide it forward right into this front mount where it's not twisting. And then once you get them both out, just slide it up into here. And use the same bolt. And then I just like to tighten everything up all together. That way, when you're doing it, it gives you a little wiggle room to line everything up. But now you can just tighten this all down pretty good. Not too tight, but just enough. And then we'll throw the shackles on the rear. Also, when you're tightening these bolts, make sure the leaf spring can move freely up and down. That way you're not binding it right here. So that'll restrict your flex if you tighten those too much. So time for my $1 million invention. So this is where this little tool comes in handy. For these two bolts, you got to remove this. Normally, you can't fit a regular Allen key in here. It's just too big. So you got to drop the transmission and take the shaft off, all that stuff. And it's just kind of a pain in the butt. So what I did is just snip one of them pretty shallow. You go in here and it fits. And you twist them off. Especially on a new truck, they're usually easy enough to spin the rest off by hand. Or take your needle nose and just do it the rest of the way if they're crusty or you can't get your fingers in there. But spin them like that, they come out, and then the new shackle is just even easier to install. So now we're going to throw that shackle on the rear. You need one of each bushings that come in there. They got this big one with a collar on it, and then a small one, and then use the original shackle. You're going to discard one of these bolts. Just keep it as a spare or whatever. I'm going to do the best I can to show this, but you take the collared one. Oops. Try not to lose it because they're very tiny. And put it on the inside. So it'll be on the inside of the frame rail, inside of the shackle. And it's going to drop down right here because that gives it the little extra space for where that notch is in the frame. And then this one, little one, goes just on the other side here. It'll slip right into that hole. It's a very tight fit, but just make sure it's, in there seated properly. Don't crank down on it if it's crooked or anything like that. Difficult to do when I'm working around a camera. You want to get that in there and just keep threading that through. And then you'll slap a nut on that side as well, which comes in the little baggie of parts, which it's usually easiest to take a set of pliers and just drop it down in there and thread it through, just to get it started at least, and then you can just put one of the little wrenches on it. But I find this to be a little easier because you can hold on to it, and once you get it started, you can just hold it with your little wrench and thread it the rest of the way in. Just make sure those washers are all straight and don't twist on you or anything while you're doing this. You don't have to crank on that really that much. You have enough space if you tighten it hard, but you don't want to warp those brass bushings. And then all you gotta do is take this out. I kind of just do it with it together. I guess you can do it without it together. Just sometimes it's easier because it keeps it from going all over the place. And put your nut on. The same for the other side. The other side's actually easier because you're not working on the inside of the transmission. Yeah, once you break them loose, you can get your fingers in way easier on this side. Or the needle nose. Alright, that's what it looks like all together. Still stiff even removing that helper spring, so I'll probably take the spring out of the shock once we get it flipped over. And I'm going to do the rear real quick, the axle flip, and I'll do the O-ring mount on there. I'm not going to really film much of that because it's the same exact thing as this. It's actually easier because there's less junk in the way. So I'll do that quick. Actually, I almost forgot about the skid plate, so I'll do that and then skid plate, and then we'll mess with the flex more. So don't forget to swap the little drive shaft insert. And then another thing I'm going to do, since I want to run one spring in the rear, I did two in the front, but I'm probably going to take that spring out of the shock. But I like to take the helper spring and put it on the top, which doesn't help you get any stiffer spring rate, but it helps with axle wrap. So it'll twist against this instead of just twisting that spring and warping it. So we want to prevent that, so we're going to put this on top and then bolt everything back together with the O-ring mod. So something I like to do on the rear axle, since it has this seam that the front axle doesn't have, this top part isn't threaded, but the bottom bulkier part is. I like to do the bolts the opposite way, so they go up through. That way you still have that tension on there, holding it together. I don't know, maybe I'm just paranoid, but it keeps it from, maybe leaking or something, or splitting apart down the line. But I do that, and then we'll do the O-ring mod on here, and then just put a nylon nut on top, and that's how I usually do the rears, because this also has a little like notch in the axle where the head of the bolt can sit, unlike the front axle. It doesn't have that, so you can't do it on the front axle, but you can on the rear. And you can do the rear technically the same way you do the front. This is just extra precaution that I take. I don't know, maybe it doesn't really matter that much, but it's also kind of just easier to do because you just put your O-rings on there, drop it down, and then put the nuts on top. And you will need screws just a bit longer than the ones that are in the truck. So I already had these on standby with some of my extra parts, but just keep that in mind. Otherwise, just do it the regular way. Okay, so this is what I mean by putting the helper spring on top. It just helps with axle wrap. If you get twisting, it'll give it more support. So we want to keep it pretty soft to break in these springs for a little bit. We'll see how soft it is once we get it together. But another thing, just more of the fine-tuning stuff. So this is about all the dropout we're going to get on the rear. And you can see, pull the shock away, and this is kind of just how you do this stuff. You got a little bit more dropout there than what I have with the spring. That's about max. And then here, can still slide it out quite a bit. But then when you look at it this way, going up, the shock limits it. So one of the things you can do to a certain extent is move the top post over one on the rear. One or two, depends on how much play we got, but I'm gonna mess with that a little bit. That way we can get more up travel and then try to maximize the droop and up travel to get the sweet spot. I'm gonna take this rear bumper mount off because we don't need that at all. Okay, so the one on the right is where it came out of the box, and then I moved this one over 2 holes. So I don't know how well you'll be able to tell, but this bottoms out right there. And you got, that's about the droop it's got. This is almost maxed out droop, which is same as that, but we can go up much further. So that versus that. And if you look at the side view, this leaf spring is just about flat. The only limitation you have is both of them collapsing. It'll hit the top of that nut, but you're not going to really ever have that. So as long as you're just articulating, you're fine. But yeah, much more articulation. And we're using that shock to its full extent now. So much more flex. I can throw the tires on to show it on the body quick. Okay, so probably gonna have to stiffen up the rear a little bit now that I got the body on. I'll probably flop a leaf over, or maybe just put the springs in the shock. But anyways, try to give you a good comparison right here. So this is how the shock was mounted from the factory. You get a good 2-tire flex now that we messed with, the springs and all that. I mean, put 3 on there. It's not touching. But this side that we changed the position of the top shock mount, like that, with the battery in it, you get an easy 3-tire flex. So you get that much more articulation because of the angle and all that, and you're maximizing the shaft on the shock. So you're using the entire shaft rather than just like this much of it with how they have it mounted from the factory. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge improvement just by, you know, moving the shock. And we'll still have to see about the taller shock hoops. I'll probably have to use the Glande ones because, I mean, look how close that is. The shaved Glande ones, rather. So we'll see how that works out. Either that or we'll shave it up a little bit. I'm going to kind of mess with this off camera so I can keep my train of thought. I keep having people come to my house and stuff and I lose my train of thought. That way I can throw it together and tune it and test it real quick and then show you what I did afterwards. But you get the idea of how to do this stuff. But yeah, definitely got to throw the spring under on the rear. I'm surprised how soft it is. So these springs are super soft springs out of the box. You just have to play with the shocks and stuff. Just to show you some progress. So these little shock towers I got off, or shock hoops, whatever you want to call it, off eBay. They actually kind of fit. They're hitting right on the front of the engine bay. So I could probably just get away with shaving that little top corner of the shock hoop or the engine bay. I'll probably just do it with the shock hoop. I got it on. It's just like very, very stretched. So I'm going to just finagle it a little more. And then I did find these longer shocks. I think these are originally off my Marlin. So they're a little longer. It'll give us more travel. And yeah, I wish I could tell you what millimeter they are. I just have no idea. They're just literally just flown around in my parts bin. The shocks that I ordered, I can tell you what those are when they come in. Okay, so I got both of these shock hoops on, and it does fit without trimming them, but yeah, it's hard to get the body on even with the stock hoops, so I might just shave them down a tiny bit just for the ease of getting the body on and off. But yeah, if you're looking at those, they do fit. And I'm still waiting to throw the inner fender liners on until we get all this situated, because I have to you will have to cut the top of these right there just to do that, but we're not gonna do that this video. We're just gonna get this thing crawling, flexing. Alright, I just shaved them down. I can touch up the paint another time. I'm gonna do the same here, put black paint on it. But last that we're probably gonna do in this video is throw this transfer case shield, whatever, up on there. Very simple. You just take out these screws and then you just unbolt the two on the bottom. Very simple, self-explanatory, but I can do that quick. And then this one actually just bolts to the bottom on those bolts. So then you don't have to deal with these things again. But yeah, anyways. Okay, so after all of our modifications, we got a good 2 tires in the front, maybe even 3. Oh yeah, we basically got 3. I mean, and this has a battery in it now too, so the weight's all of what it'll be on the trail. So that's pretty impressive. So I'm happy with that. And the rear is obviously going to be more, just because there's always more flex in the rear. Right, yeah, that one's touching easy, so still with a tiny bit to go. So yeah, very simple upgrades to get a ton of flex. And like I said before, you don't need to do the hoop thing, but that gives you a lot more up travel, especially in the front, and then down travel as well. So you get that tire tuck in the front, which is always cool to see. But yeah, let's take it on the trail quick, or on the test track. We'll wrap up this video. super good improvement on flex, just for a couple simple modifications. And most of the stuff you don't have to do the extended shock hoops and stuff. You can get a lot more soft suspension by just taking the springs out and all the other stuff that I mentioned in the video. But oops, turn my light off. But yeah, easy to get these things to flex and perform like a real truck. And I hope this video helped you guys out if you're looking to do this to yours. If this video helped you out or you liked the video, I appreciate a like. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date with all the builds and projects, and follow my Instagram, poverty_society, if you want to see more content on there. Anyways, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video. We're going to do a motor and ESC upgrade in it, and then do body work from there. Oh, and one of the little issues that I ran into is, I'll put a clip here. The drive shaft kept popping out in the front, so even though it's a longer like shaft in the middle, it still pops out. Like when it's out of load, it'll pop out. But yeah, there you go. So, and part of it is because like it'll cycle up that way or down, one or the other, till it bottoms out like that, and then you get a little bit of torque on there and it pops out. So how I'm going to solve that temporarily is just glue one side of this where it's it's got a good amount of spline in there, and just glue one side. Don't glue both, obviously, because then it won't be able to travel. So not a big deal, just keep that in mind. Maybe I'll do it down further, but yeah, once I mess with it, just glue one side and it should be good to go that way. And the front is still a little bit higher, I think, than the rear. It'll settle eventually, but just barely higher, so that's probably why it's doing that. But yeah, not a big deal. Also, let me know in the comments below what you think we should do for the body. I'm definitely doing like the beater build, like a beater woods or like hunting truck kind of style, but I'm wondering or thinking about keeping at least like a door in memory of the original body. I'm obviously gonna like sand it and weather it a little bit and do like a flat clear. And I gotta cut this still so it looks a little better, but yeah, should I keep a door original to the body and then paint the rest, or and then another thing, should I paint everything at once or just slowly do it as it gets beat up? So kind of on the fence about it. We're obviously doing like the Tamiya grill swap and stuff like that, but yeah, let me know in the comments below. Redo the whole thing right off the bat, or slowly as it gets beat up. It's a little too cold out to actually like spray the whole thing, so I'm just gonna use like model paint to do like a fender and this and that. I'm gonna get rid of like this casting seam, stuff like that. But yeah, let me know in the comments.